Welcome back. I'm filming this a little bit out of order for a change because I'm still working on the buffer that I'm hoping you've already seen by now. But at this moment in time, it is cooling down still. So I've been looking at something else on the Jinty. The oiler lubricator, let's go and take a look. The lubricator is under the cab floor. I will show you this now. And as such, as you can imagine, it's a bit of a pain to check the level because you need to take the floor out, you need to take the lid off the pot, and then you've got to the pot. So I'm coming up with an idea to make monitoring that a little bit easier. I'm hoping that the final part of the idea looks really good, but because I'm not quite confident in that, I'm not going to show that bit to you quite yet, or not let on my idea. So let me show you what I've done so far. The cab footplate, I drilled a hole in. That is just under ½ inch. While I was drilling the hole, when it was a bit smaller, I put the footplate in place above the lubricator tank. I marked on the lid through the hole to that position on the lid. As such, I have now turned this little piece, which will go through that hole from inside. Let me show you. So I'm going to solder that in place like that, with it sticking up as such. Hopefully that'll stick up enough. But yeah, that is the plan. And then hopefully the filling and monitoring can be done through that hole. But if that's not good enough, you can still take the footplate off and take this off. But I think it will be. Notice there's a groove in the side. That will become clear shortly. So I'm going to solder this in place. I'll be back in a minute when I've soldered it. So probably a bit overkill for the job, but I have silver soldered it in place. When that's cooled down, I can fit it back in place. So that little groove I showed you, I have stretched an O-ring over. The reasoning will become apparent later. So there she is in situ. And we've just got to hope that I can get the lid on. I think I might need to take the O-ring off first. I'll come back in a moment. There we are, the floor's fitted. I might actually make the hole in the floor a touch bigger so it can come off without having to take that O-ring off. But the next stage of the plan will be something can drop over the top, and that, as it happens, was the right size. That just sits nicely, gripped in place by the O-ring, so it won't bounce off and get lost. But that is not what the finished thing is going to be. I'm going to make something different, and I will show you what it is shortly. So there we go, I've opened it up to 14mm. Not the easiest with one hand, but that is the footplate in place. Sticks through nicely, O-ring still in place, and that pops over the top. Obviously that is not going to seal it at the moment, but I will pass you over to future me. So I've come back the next day, or a couple of days later as it happens, and it's got a bit tighter on that O-ring. So I'm going to make that a little bit bigger, but it lifts the lid. I wanted that to be a bit more secure really. So what I'm going to do is scribe, I can't easily show you with one hand, scribe a line on the brass pipe. I'll lift it up, I'll scribe another line, then I'm going to find some material that sort of thickness and solder it to the top of the lid so that it can't lift up. So there's my two scribed lines. They appear to be about a 1/16 apart, so that's nice and easy. I can get some 1/16 brass and just solder it onto the top there. I may just soft solder that, as it really doesn't need any strength at all. So as it happens, I found a couple of pieces that were a nice size anyway. I'll put that there, and obviously the other piece along there. So I'm just going to put some soft solder flux on, then I'll just gently warm it up, solder it together. Now obviously for what this is, it didn't really matter where they were. They're only packing pieces. You've seen me solder it, they started to move. So I just nudged them back into roughly a nicer looking place. You may also have noticed that when I flipped them over and put them on, they were horribly dirty. That's because they were a dirty piece of metal that I cleaned up one side, because that's the side I was going to solder. Now that it's soldered, I will clean up the top surface as well. So on to the next bit. So this block of steel is going to be the thing that goes on top of there, and that's roughly the shape I'm going for. That was only a very rough sketch, and obviously the size, as you can tell, and the sizes are very rough as well. I've cut a piece just a little bit longer than needed off of a piece of bar that's still in the saw. Gives me enough to hold in the chuck, and then I'll machine to the size I'm after. See if you can guess what I'm going to make it look like. So for the shape I'm making, I want a taper that's obviously big at one end, little at the other. The small end will be counterbored to go on the spigot. I've actually done that with an end mill, and I've opened out the bore a lot more further out, so that when I part off this bit, there's not so much to come off. Excuse me. The reason I've done that is so that I can grip this piece and turn the rest of it, because I want to counterbore the other end as well. So it's always difficult to decide how to hold something when you want to bore both ends, but that's how I've decided to do this. And there's the taper turned. Looks about right to me. It just wants, I put a little groove there to remind me where the end point is. I'm just going to counterbore this end, make it look a bit different, and then we'll see where we can go from there. So it's more or less ready to part off now, but have a guess at what you think it is that I've made to put on the footplate. I'll show you what it is now, and let me know if you've guessed it right. Let me know if you guessed it wrong and what you thought it might be. Let's take a look. It is, of course, a bucket, although you might want to look at it like that to see it better. It's counterbored, so only a short way, so it's still a nice solid lump, but the idea of it being counterbored is that I will then just put a drizzle of oil in the top, or something, maybe some paint. Like I might just put some browny murky paint in the top and let it set. I might even drill it and put some sticks sticking out like brushes. But yeah, let's part it off and see what it looks like. And there it is, sitting in place. What we need now is a handle to go around. And there we have it with a handle. Looking at it now, maybe it should have had more of a taper, but looks good to me. So I might have said the secondary purpose of this is to be a dipstick. So I've cut a bit of half round beading. What I did was I had a longer length. I dipped it in the tank. I pinched it just above, cut it to length, cleaned it up, and I'm going to hopefully soft solder it into there, just so I haven't got to get it that hot. So yeah, that's the next step. So that's soldered really easily, really quickly. You can see it's still bubbling in there, still smoking. Maybe I've got it a touch too hot. The coloration on the bucket, I might even leave to begin with. How often was a bucket clean on a footplate? So let's wait for that to cool down and see what it looks like on the engine. So it's in place. Oh, it's got tight now, but I can use it as a dipstick. It has pulled the O-ring off though. So soldering it, I must have got a bit of solder on the inside. I need to think about trying to clean that off and get the O-ring off. But on the other hand, if I glue the O-ring in place on there, a little bit of oil every now and again will lubricate it to come off. Right, so I haven't glued that O-ring in place. I did just pull the dipstick out, wipe the oil around it, and now it just drops on nicely, stays there, and then it comes off nice and easily as well. I just hope that that drain cock lever shuts enough when it hits that. We'll see. I might be able to do something if it doesn't. So there we have it. We have created an extension to the pipe so I can easily dip and check the oil level in that lubricator. I can also, with a very liquid bottle full of, or a squeezy bottle full of oil, I could even fill it up from the cab without having to take the footplate up. So I think it's fair to say most people that know me will know, and you may have guessed from some of my previous videos the way they finished, I couldn't leave it at that. I had to find a bit of paint and do the paint now. So I had a look in a little tray of tins of Humbrol that I've got, and I had a small tin of black which had very little in it, but enough. And then I had this tin which had red on the lid, and then it was this sort of murky brown colour inside. The black you can see is because I thought about adding a bit of black to it, but there wasn't really enough black in the tin. So I added some of that to the black tin, and I've got this sort of murky grey colour, which I think looks quite good in there. See what you think. There you go. I just poured it in, let it find its own level, and that is how I think I'll leave it. I might just put it back on the engine so it dries on there, or I'll just leave it in the vise and leave it there. You see there the colour that was on the top of the tin, which I was never going to guess that it was that brown, other than it had the browny colour on the side. So yeah, that's that. See what it looks like when it's dry. So once again, thanks for watching. If you can think of anything that I could leave sticking out of there, I mean, I might just drill a hole, put a little wooden stick so it looks like a handle of a brush or something like that. But yeah, that's that done. Another little job off the list. Come back next time and we'll see the next mod. I say come back next time for the next mod. I'm going away for the weekend, and there's a possibility that where my wife has chosen for us to go with her family for a sort of family weekend away, there is a distinct possibility that there's a railway nearby. So maybe you'll see a bit from there. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Please come back. Please subscribe, like, share, tell your friends, do whatever you like. thanks very much. So pleased that you all watch, and I'm so overjoyed, over the moon. I don't know the word. Overwhelmed at some of the responses I get. I can never believe how much some of you guys enjoy these videos. For me, they're just a bit of, it started off as just a bit of fun to almost help me get in the workshop. But if you're enjoying them, I'll keep going. Thanks for watching. See you soon.